if I talked up a first-person RPG set in a futuristic wasteland that had tons of randomly generated weaponry, armor, and equipment, unique character classes, and lots of replayable content, you'd swear the looter shooter I was referring to was Borderlands, or maybe Destiny. Well then, what if I told you that the game I'm talking about had all those features? More unique classes, plus the addition of randomly generated dungeons, multiplayer hubs, and a competitive PvP arena, and came out 2 full years before Borderlands, and was headed by the creators of the Diablo series. Crazy, right? As some may already be familiar, the story of Hellgate London is a curious one, namely the story of its development, its vast potential, demise, and multiple rebirths. With a fascinating setting of magic, high-tech guns, laser swords, and demons, how could such a promising game, with this level of talent behind it, fail and descend into obscurity, only for the same concepts to be used in future games, and praised as such just months later? I'm now going to do my best at dissecting what Hellgate did right, and arguably better than its contemporaries, while I also do a bit of sleuthing to see why it failed to grasp the attention and audience it deserved. The setting of Hellgate is roughly what you'd get if you plucked a Diablo-like conflict of humans fighting against demons and placed it in a real-world Terminator-like future setting. Using to the fullest your arsenal of machine guns, laser swords, magic spells, and summoning against zombies, demons, and Lovecraftian nether beings that inspire horror and hatred. The Blizzard-quality intro cinematic is both exciting and a great way to slam you right into the setting of the game. The interesting mix of ancient evil and a hellish apocalypse through the ruins of London is an inspired one, and teases the depth and potential of the setting, which even licensed multiple novels and comics set in the Hellgate universe. The rich lore and potential of the series was perpetuated through the 6 unique character classes from 3 factions. The Templars are holy warriors, adorned in high-tech knight-like armor, and offer 2 subclasses: the Guardian, focusing on defensive abilities and wielding a great shield, and the Blade Master, a dual-wielding attack-focused warrior who can utilize ranged weaponry as well. The Hunters are the title given to a ragtag non-faction of survivors, scientists, and mercenaries, the Marksman being a subclass dedicated to evasion, guns, and accuracy, whereas the Engineer is less focused on range attacks, but can create debuff drones and attack robots. The Cabal offer up the Evoker subclass, which can utilize focus items to weaponize magic and brute force attacks, as well as the Summoner, who conjures elementals and monsters to fight alongside them. In these classes, you will notice definite shades of Diablo 2's Paladin, Necromancer, and other classes, which is a warm welcome to those who miss the distinct flavors of character that game delivered, and are disappointed in the recent lack of Summoner classes in action RPGs. You probably wouldn't know this unless you read the lore from the expanded material, but the game's fiction and setting is compelling. Throughout history, there has been a war with the demons, and so the Freemasons along with the Templars built a labyrinth of underground tunnels under London as early as the 17th century, and imbued them with the special power to ward off the Hellish Legion. Centuries later, this became the London Underground, and so in the game setting of 2038, subway stations are the only sanctuaries from the demons. The game has a great soundtrack which is fairly subtle a lot of the time, and ranges from gothic orchestral cues to guitar riffs, then breaking down to techno tracks during combat. When maxing the game out in its then groundbreaking DirectX 10 mode, the game at times looks breathtaking, and that's saying a lot considering the innovation, hardware power, and new technology introduced over the past decade. From unsettling quadrupedal vermin to ominous dimensional portals, from towering demons to the downright eldritch beings silently but threateningly floating above you in outdoor areas, there is a bleak and sinister atmosphere to it all, and despite having lackluster face models and inventory item graphics, holds up surprisingly well today. Hellgate plays like a different game depending on your character class. Should you play a melee-focused character, the game handles more like Gothic, The Witcher, or the later Dragon Age games. You don't get a ton of abilities to start with, but as you develop or expand your equipment, you'll master builds such as a sword and grapple gun combo, where you can pull enemies toward you and pummel them, dual wielding, or the classic sword and shield for added defense. This leads to one of the game's most ambitious features, as well as one of its biggest hurdles for new players. When you boot up the game, you are either presented a behind-the-camera perspective for melee, or you get a first or third-person shooter control scheme and feel. And you will likely hate gun combat, and think melee combat is dull and repetitive. At first. You see, Hellgate is, at its core, a Diablo-like hack-and-slasher presented and controlled like a first-person shooter. The later, more successful takes on the genre were developed as first-person shooters with RPG elements, not the other way around. This makes an even stronger case when you look at who developed these games. Borderlands was made by longtime shooter vets Gearbox. Destiny was Bungie's stab at the genre, and oddly enough, both devs worked on iterations of Halo games. Shadowware 2 took a lot of cues from these games, and that developer has made nothing but shooters. The developer of Hellgate was formed from the creators of Diablo and Diablo 2, out of the ashes of Blizzard North. So it is no surprise then that it was designed as a hack-and-slasher first, shooter second. Shooting in Hellgate felt like lighting fireworks at times, rather than landing impactful hits. Most guns don't even recoil, but simply expand your reticule a bit. The few guns that do have recoil do it in the worst way ever, with a sort of low FPS shaky cam effect. It simply doesn't feel as kinetic as the over-the-top chaos of Borderlands, or the zipping and slicing of Shadow Warrior. Say what you want about Destiny's lack of content or campaign variety, the actual shooting mechanics are top-notch. Guns have a kick, headshots give a satisfying pop, and all indicators and UI are fine-tuned to meet your expectations. Many years of technology and experience helped expand that gap as well. Put simply, Hellgate was a bad shooter. But if you look at it as an action RPG in shooter clothing, it's one of the better examples of the genre. Once you really sink your fangs into Hellgate, you realize just how much the game is Diablo. And I'm not talking about the cute references to Wart, Charged Bolt, and other series tropes, but almost every mechanical aspect of the game. Town portals, identify scrolls, health and mana potions, status ailment cures, socketables, and random magic item properties. Skill trees with branching paths and multiple viable builds, this time with skill synergies, which make each point you put into abilities affect all other abilities of that type, which makes progression less wasteful and more meaningful. Hellgate brings the customizable action bar into full force, with 14 mappable functions for health, mana, and buff consumables, and active abilities, rather than the later looter shooter simplification into just 1 or 2 active abilities. You'll notice that attributes have a Dark Souls-like weight system, in which each piece of equipment has attribute requirements which stack with each other. So for example, you wouldn't be able to use both the strength heavy weapon and armor, so you may have to use one or the other until leveling up. And the character screen tracks this and shows you which attributes are near full capacity. One huge feature that this game offers over just about any other game in the genre is its procedurally generated maps. In replaying the beginning of the game several times for this video, I noticed big differences in each playthrough of the same dungeon, the way it was laid out, and the monster types of the quantities inside. There would also be rare creatures and even mini-bosses which appear throughout hostile areas, keeping you on your guard. It's all there, all of it. Hellgate is sort of the Diablo that never was once you pull the curtain back. And when you do, it's great. What ultimately killed the game after its release is difficult to pin down exactly. Its launch was riddled with high system requirements, technical issues, and a very bad start on the multiplayer front. But probably the most egregious decision was the late development switch to an MMO subscription-style business model. This all but crippled the online community for what was really a single-player focused game, without the vast scale, community, moderation, or social features one would expect in an actual MMO. Allegedly, the complicated co-publishing agreement between EA and Namco Bandai led to poor planning, were the result of the MMO-like fee announcement. Hellgate also came out at a time of fast-growing popularity of the 7th generation of consoles. The unfortunate reality was that for a game to do really well financially, you're generally going on the Xbox 360, or your World of Warcraft. One big turnoff for some players could be the initial presentation of the game. After a great intro cinematic, you're dropped into an unresponsive on-screen tutorial with no voice acting, compelling story cues, or initial purpose. Classes that start with slow firing and weak guns have unfulfilling early game combat, and NPCs are fairly dull, as are many of the methods of storytelling used in the game. The issue has been a bugbear for me since the advent of MMO-style design, and is not unique to Hellgate, but rigor mortis NPCs that just stand there with punctuation marks above their heads get really stale, with only an unrelated voice quip here or there, makes conversations fall flat. This may have been a side effect of the MMO-like design, which de-emphasizes NPCs, but instead focus on larger areas with the intent of players filling the silence, walking around, interacting and adding life to the environment. Without those other players, though, it all seems so stagnant, sterile even. The procedural generation was also a point of contention too, as not quite enough building tiles and texture sets were used, leading many areas to feel very samey after a while, with little to interact with or fill them. The absence of Diablo's shrines, book rooms, and other random props is noticed, and you will start recognizing room sets after a while, which is disappointing as this was intended to make maps unpredictable. Another missed opportunity was to add more barriers, verticality, stairs, and open ceilings to the corridor-based maps, which makes some combat arenas completely flat. Almost questioning why this game wasn't a top-down action RPG at all if they weren't going to take advantage of what a third dimension can bring to the table. Despite the rough launch and fiscal demise of the developer, there is an unusually dedicated fanbase, and clearly a lot of people really got and truly enjoy the game. This is proven by Handbitsoft's authorized redevelopment and re-release of the game for South Korean audiences in 2009, dubbed Hellgate London Resurrection. It was met with community praise, but North America only got to play through their beta phase. 2011 saw the game enter a free-to-play business model. In 2014, the game was revived again, this time with the rebranding of the game as Hellgate Global, and there were big plans announced along with it, including a Tokyo expansion and a new difficulty mode. Sadly, early 2016 was witness to what seemed like the franchise's final death, in the form of Hellgate Global's servers shutting down, and the game never making it to the Steam storefront, despite getting greenlit with a lot of player interest, which, had it been released, would have resulted in a much-needed boon to its player base. In summary, Hellgate was the victim of a rushed production schedule, complications from co-publishers meddling with the product, and a parasitic subscription fee. I truly believe that had the company had a few more months of spit, polish, and QA, omitted the shoehorned online fees, and instead grew a nuanced, organic multiplayer community, we may have been playing Hellgate 2 or even 3 by now. Who knows? There is a lot to love in this game, if you dig under the unintuitive and initially buggy release that it was, and it's sad that we won't get to venture into the damned hellscape of London to go demon bashing again. At least not officially. Yep. After the repeated death throes and resuscitations of the game have long passed, members of the same team who made an unofficial revival update years ago are back at it again to make London 2038, a full resurrection of the game with content like the Abyss and Stonehenge expansions, previously available only to paying subscribers. This fan reassembly of the game will put Hellgate, in its finest form yet, back online through the power of fans' love and dedication to the game. It's in development and alpha testing at the time of this video's release, so go check it out. So, even when all hope is lost, there still might be a chance to play the game in a new form, online with other players, and as close to a form as was originally intended. For fans of the original game, or newcomers who didn't have a chance to play it but wanted to, this is your latest and possibly final chance to step into the apocalyptic ruins of future London and hunt demons once more. So that was my take on Hellgate London, what it innovated and why it ultimately failed, but more importantly, why it should be remembered, not forgotten. I hope you enjoyed my video, and I would love to hear what you think. Were you an old school Hellgate London player? Or like me, did you jump into the game too late to play it online? Or maybe you're only now finding out about this flawed gem. Let me know in the comments. I want to thank my Patreon supporters for helping make this possible. If you would like to become a patron and help me make more videos like this one, click the Patreon icon at the end of the video. Please consider subscribing if you'd like to get my latest content as soon as it's posted. And thank you for watching.